Hi. 7 months ago, on December 10 last year, 2022, I pointed out the old Facebook stock, now called Meta, M-E-T-A. It was, I said, a potential multi-bagger hiding in plain sight. Why did I think so? Because my sleuthing value criterion for tech stocks, R&D spendings, plus a few other things, came up as an extreme. What exactly is this criterion? Watch again the December 10 video, then buy my book, The Advanced Sleuth Investor, and see the method explained. For the non-techies among you, tech R&D is equivalent to capital spendings in non-tech industry, also known as CapEx. In non-tech industry, CapEx creates machinery that produces products. In tech companies, however, is the research and development, the R&D, that produces products, both tangible and non-tangible, such as software, the kind that Meta's Facebook produces. Therefore, if a tech company spends a lot on R&D, and some of it creates a product that the customers buy or use, then competitors of that company might spend at least that amount to catch up. Then also hire salespeople and administrators and rent officers, etc. In short, a high research and development spending can be a clear barrier to competition. Because of that, the sum of the previous few years of R&D tells you what could be the hidden value in a tech company, even though it hasn't yet generated sales. I said could be, because this is of course subject to sleuthing and due diligence, i.e. checking with customers, competitors, employees, yes, and outside experts. Now, what was the hidden R&D value at Meta? Well, Meta has been spending about $25 billion a year, $35 billion the last year, that's billion with a B, on R&D. For more than 10 years, this would be $250 billion, as much as the Apollo program that put men on the moon. It's a ginormous amount, a private space program, so to speak. And what was Meta spending this $250 billion on? On something called the metaverse, a non-product, in my opinion, meant to put you inside an imaginary world with avatars, which of course bombed. But so what if it did? Because on the way, Meta also created new kind of products, including goggles that can serve both VR and AR. Now, what are these? VR is virtual reality, total 3D immersion. It requires putting a little fridge over your eyes in the shape of goggles that blocks the rest of the world while you immerse yourself in a game or a fight or a tour of the Amazon or a tour of Venice. Nice to use, but not critical to your life like an iPhone is. On the other hand, AR, or augmented reality, is a combination of the real world seen through glasses splashed with created signs and ads, like a fighter pilot see on his windscreen. No ads, but can see other things like speed and direction, how much gasoline he still has left, or hours of flight. It's called the HUD, a heads-up display. I myself never liked VR because it blocks the world, and I didn't like AR because there was no killer app for it, and a previous version, Google's Glass, bombed. What I wanted to see was a VR-AR combination. But how? Well, I was waiting for a contact lens that goes right on the eye with a display on it. I thought it was a few years away based on some input from my contacts in the Bay Area. But the stock, I said, was so cheap, you are buying so much R&D per share, it would be worth the wait. Well, I was wrong on the wait, but more than right on the stock. And how? Meta just released a new product, that goggles that do both AR and VR at once at a ridiculously low price of $400 Canadian or $300 US. Just how good are the goggles? I asked my son, who's a superb techie, to buy them and check them out for me. The result? He usually is an even keel kind of guy, but after testing the goggles, he fairly bubbled with enthusiasm. The goggles are so cheap, he said, that anyone can buy and test them. And the goggles are also standalone with their own battery, and you can see all around 360 degrees, and the latency, that the reaction time to your head movement is super fast. What's more, he said, The goggles come with two handheld triggers, pointers, that click on imaginary buttons floating in the air as you watch the virtual augmented reality. In other words, both in quality and in price, it's a winner. If, my son said, a big if. If what? If you believe that some of the app developers will come up with really useful apps to make AR, VR commonplace and necessary. Will there be such apps? Some already exist. Short movies, and of course also lessons in human reproduction that were always first use of technology, in other words, porn, and also games in which you chase aliens, the usual VR fare, which, however, isolate you from the world, but not in Meta's new goggles. You see, they let you do VR, virtual reality, but you can also talk and see the real world via two tiny cameras superimposed, if you want to. AR and VR together, even as you are immersed, and cheaply too. What did the market think of this product? Ha! Meta stock tripled in 7 months. 7 months at triple. So is my R&D sifting formula a whiz, or is it? It sure is. But it's not the only one I use for sleuthing. A similar formula called Idonor, EDN, the Argentine utility, which over the last 3 years has quadrupled. That's a four-bagger. Now, what about sifting large big cap stocks? The kind that big funds buy for millions and hundreds of millions. Sleuthing can do that too. In my book, The Advanced Sleuth Investors, there are sifting formulas for non-tech big caps too, to narrow the universe of stocks to sleuth, since the sleuthing activity is so time-consuming that you better know exactly which one to put it on. Look up in my book, where Appendix 1 lists 15 sleuth-worthy stocks, all solid big caps that passed through the sifter. How did these 15 do? Since the book was published 10 months ago, the sleuth-worthy 15 big caps rose 34%. And that's even before sleuthing them up close and personal to narrow the list. Now, how well did these sifted stocks perform in comparison to other stocks or to the market? Well, in the same 10 months since October last year, since publication, Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway rose only 27%, or 7% less than the 15. The S&P 500 rose only 23%, or 11% less than them, and the Dow rose only 18%, or 60% less. How do you like them comparison numbers, huh? Now back to Meta, because you may ask, are its new goggles the only thing benefiting the stock? No, there are two more benefits. One more is the extreme cost cutting that Meta has gone through, so costs are now extremely low, so any new revenues will fall straight to the bottom line. But the other big reason is Meta's new Twitter competitor called Threads. Now let me hasten to add that I prefer Twitter, but it's not what I prefer that matters, but rather here it's what the US government prefers. You see, after buying Twitter, Elon Musk opened it to all political views, which before was not the case. I like this, but the US government evidently doesn't, because not only did Musk buy Twitter, he also opened up its records to show that the old Twitter management allegedly censored views that went against the government's approved view. The US government didn't like that, but it found it hard to fight Musk because he also supplies rocket to the Air Force and is extremely rich and obstinate. It was then that Meta's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, which is almost as rich as Musk, came up with a Twitter competitor called Threads, and the US government happily went along with it and allegedly gives it more advertising and more support. Why does it? First, because it competes with Twitter, which the government dislikes, but second, because Threads is as censorious of some views as Twitter had been pre-Musk. That, of course, is a hell of a competitive advantage, because Threads customers are no longer just the users, but also the US government, see? So, not only does Meta have the spiffy new goggles backed by a huge R&D budget, but in crimping Twitter, it has the US government on its side. And, last but not least, its costs are low, so any benefits will boost profit handsomely. So, is Meta still a buy? This I won't tell you. Go do your own sleuthing. Get yourself the new Meta goggles and try them on. Give them to a techie friend to check. Ask him or her to compare them to the competitors. Yes, there are a few. Then make up your own mind, as every sleuth should. as every investor should, and as should you. That's all for now. Please let me know in a comment below whether you liked the above, and if you did, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Then retweet to all your friends subscribers so they're subscribed to. Then buy my book, The Advanced Sleuth Investors, when the above R&D ratio appears to, as well as other sifting formulas, and write a review of it in Amazon, which I hope will be a good one. I'll see you next time, and meantime, thank you very much for watching.